Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Colin and this is Red, White, and Boosted. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen a lot of YouTubers that have had 6, 7, 8-part series, maybe some even up to 13. But I have a feeling that this project is going to take more than a year. The entire reason I bought the Lotus. Windsor, go back inside. Good boy. Stay in there, okay? I have a feeling that this is going to be probably one of the longer series on YouTube. And given what my last cars have been, I'm sure you found it a little odd that I just bought a stock Lotus with lower miles, only 60,000 miles, compared to a lot of shit boxes that I have, 300,000 miles. Since I was 16, nothing's the same. My mini SLR was 160,000 miles. So, and they were all very interesting. Why did I buy the Lotus? The reason I bought the Lotus is to fill one of my bucket list cars you can't buy. And what I mean by that is, I am going to stretch the chassis on this car. It's a little easier than you might imagine, given the construction of the car. And I'm going to put in a Mercedes V12 with a Porsche 997 transaxle. I'm going to try and do the prototype, the first rendition, as affordable as I can. So it's going to be an S600 engine or maybe a CL600 engine, but it will be a twin turbo. It'll be a 275, not a 173 or a 137. So it'll be either 600, S600 or a CL600, but it will be twin turbo, so it will be an 03 and up. It will not be a 137, it will be a 275. As far as the transaxle goes, I found a couple of Carrera S manuals that are pretty cheap, and even the base models. And as long, I still have a little bit of research to do on the stub axles and things like that, but as long as they're all the same, then I don't know why I can't just upgrade to a turbo later. But the basis of this, and I'm kind of basing this build off of another person's build that he didn't document through YouTube. He just did a couple of posts. Really cool guy. He did a Elise stretched, but it has a BMW V10 in it. And it has a 996 turbo transaxle, I think. In any case, there's a couple of things that need to be done. A couple of things that if you're watching this video and thinking it through, let me give you a couple of things that I've already thought of and I started drawing already. So, number one, what does that look like? So basically the basis for the other person's chassis length and width is roughly the same as a Hennessy Venom GT. And I say roughly, so if John Hennessy ends up seeing this video or this series, this is not a Hennessy Venom GT replica. This is not. This is my own, and I'm thinking of names for it. I'm thinking I'm going to call it the Colin, because number one, that's my first name. And number two, the designer and founder of Lotus was named Colin Chapman. So just like the LaFerrari, I think that calling it the Colin might be like a Mona Lisa type thing. Of all the cars I've ever dreamt of, this type of build has been at the top of my list for a very long time. And now that I've met a really good few people in the Mercedes industry, I feel very confident in taking on the project of wiring in a Mercedes V12 as opposed to a BMW, which has a lot more tuner players that are able to do this. So it'll be very unique, it'll be very powerful, and rather proven theory based on the Montevetti, which is the other BMW powered one, and the Hennessy Venom GT. So the Lotus is a great platform to start with. Not only was it the platform of the Lotus since 2001, the S2 ran from 2001 until 2011, I think. The reason that this is such a fantastic platform that's been proven is because Tesla used it in the Tesla Roadster, and then also Hennessy Venom is based on a Tesla, or based on a Lotus. So anyways, my plan is to either use this clamshell and fill in the fog lights, the front one, and split it and widen it so that leave the doors the same. The cockpit won't be changed so that the safety structure of the car is not changed. But the fenders will come out farther. I think it's roughly about 72 inches is my first drawing. I'm about to tape it out so you'll be able to see sort of part of the process. And then the wheelbase is 111 inches or 110.9. So we're gonna tape that out as well, and I'll show you exactly how far we're going to stretch it out. And then once we get the physical dimensions, I'm gonna go draw it on Fusion, and we'll be good to go. Now, as far as the body work goes, the front is pretty easy to achieve. It's just widening. Now the back is a little more difficult because you want it to flow. And if you go look at stretched Lotuses or even GT1 Lotuses or GT3 Cup cars, the Cup cars are a little bit longer, a little bit wider. The Hennessy uses like a more really flamboyant curve. The Montevetti that I just mentioned, I'm gonna put a link and video and pictures right now, is a little more sculpted, just like this car. But my plan is to stretch it 20 inches so that it follows the contour. And the other part is that a V12 is rather long. So obviously we're converting it from the transverse like this to longitudinal. So yeah. Now there is the query of, do I put it into the Exige top, or do I kind of leave it like this but just bigger? So it's interesting. The other question is, do I just have the engine cover lift, or do I do the entire clamshell kind of split right here and lift that up? I'm not sure. A lot of choices, but luckily a lot of these parts can be used again on the new stuff. And you can modify this, and then my eventual plan is to make a lot of this not plug and play, but more factory 5 kit car style, so that other Elise owners or potential Elise owners that want to make their own hypercar can. Because a 700 horsepower or 800 horsepower powered V12, Mercedes V12 with a Porsche transaxle with 3 pedals and a manual shift is rather unique and surprisingly very dependable. There are almost no issues out of Porsche transaxles. And as far as the maintenance costs go on a V12, a lot of the maintenance costs in a V12 aren't based on the cost of the parts. They're based on accessibility and labor time at a Mercedes dealership. So being able to remove the clamshell and work on it just like you would an F1 car or an Indy car where everything's very accessible will likely take down a lot of that time to something very small. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on measuring this all out and kind of physically picturing where the dimensions will be, and we'll go from there. So the first step I'm gonna do is actually measure, or not measure, but tape on this ground where the existing axle center lines are, so that it'll give me a better representation of what it will look like wider and longer. Okay guys, so I pulled the Lotus out, and the reason why is because I'm going to measure for the center line so that I can measure how much wider I need to go. Now, Windsor, what are you doing? Now, okay, so this is for the 2005 Lotus Elise, the standard. It says that the front should be 57.4 inches wide and the rear should be 59.2. Mine did have wheel spacers on it, so we'll see how true that is, but I have a tape measure over here, so we're gonna get to measuring it. Okay, so it's pretty hot out here, so I am a really sweaty mess. I didn't want to show you guys how ugly I look, but I've got it all taped out. So this is the axle line of the Lotus originally. This is the front axle, so we're walking toward the back of the car. To the original axle line, the stock one is 90.6 inches. And then using triangles, I was able to make this, the next axle line, which is 110.2. And from this point, I can go start plugging in some data points into Fusion and model it from there. But I gave enough tape lines so that we could at least see what it looks like to extend the bodywork. But this is gonna be a badass project, guys. I'm super excited. It's kind of funny to me that this gives me enough room to have a V12. I have a feeling that I'm gonna have no storage space after this. That, or I'll have to do something like the McLaren F1 where there's storage in front of the wheel arches and things like that, but we'll have to get creative. But as far as the feasibility of this setup, I think it's pretty good. Okay, so it's been a good while since I've used AutoCAD and things like that in college. And anyways, I broke it back out, and this is, once I remove all the measurements, this is what I drew on the ground in real life. But anyways, so what we're doing here is basically looking at the front axle, where it is now, where it should be after I'm finished, width-wise, and then the wheelbase. This is the stock wheelbase and stock width. And then I have a couple of choices out here. So this is where the Hennessy Venom GT is. This is where a 911 Turbo is, which is going to be the rear subframe I'm using. And then I started on researching where to buy some of this stuff. Some of the trans axles are a little pricey. It looks like I might be able to get one for around $2,300. As far as the rear subframe goes, this is a killer deal. It looks like this is off of a 911 Carrera S, and I can get this bad boy for $150 plus $350 in flat rate shipping. So we'll just have to figure what that is, but not that bad. I might have a friend pick it up and ship it to me another way, but that's a great deal. And then I can start designing in CAD the rear subframe and do some extruded views and 3D views, so it's a little better to understand. But this is fantastic, and I should just be able to make probably out of like 4 or 5 parts to adapt this. Very reproducible, and then we'll go from there. But right now, I'm looking at buying a S600. It's pretty screwed up. Really, I just need 5 components out of that car. The shift module, the shifter, the EIS, which is where the key goes into, the ECU, the TCU, and the engine. And then that way I can begin making the adapter. And there's actually another YouTuber that has an adapter already made, so I'm talking to him to see if he can send me the files, and if not, then I'll just pay him for that and try and buy one complete off him. And if that doesn't pan out, then we'll just make our own. So it's going to be pretty cool, and it should go together somewhat quickly. You know, the way that these projects work is, from my experience, is that the big pieces are easy to put together. It's the finishing parts and coding, wiring, actual final assembly, things like that make it a little more difficult. So after the stretch, this is the stock axle line. This would be the second axle line. It's 19.6 inches longer. This area from front to back, bulkhead, is like 46 inches. I really only need like 32, I think, from the bulkhead to back here, which is okay because the transmission will hang out back here, and then I'll be able to move the V12 a little farther back. Anyways.